Welcome back to our podcast, Sustainability Forward. I am Rishi, and as always, joining me is my fellow host, Carmine.
Thank you, Rishi. And yes, welcome back to our real first episode. Today, we're finally going deeper on some of the challenges that we are facing with sustainability. This is a very urgent topic. We are the very first days of July and entering summer. We are already experiencing dramatic temperature. Yesterday, Rishi was reading this article from the World Meteorological Organization. It looks like we had the hottest June on record globally, with record high temperature on the sea surface, especially in the Atlantic Ocean. Antarctic sea ice extent was an unprecedented low values. Also part of Canada, US, and Mexico and Asia were significantly warmer than normal. And we are just at the beginning of the El Nino cycle. So quite scary, I would say.
Yes, it is indeed quite scary, um, but let's try to bring some hope into this. I think we need to look at this with a critical eye.
I agree.
Let's maybe in this first episode start analyzing critically what the main challenges are with respect to sustainability. But the main question is, Carmine, where shall we start?
Yeah, also because until when you don't give them a name, it's also difficult to face this challenge. But definitely, I would say that climate change is probably at the top of the list.
I agree. And of course, this is the phenomena of altering the Earth's climate patterns due to human activities, primarily the burning of fossil fuels and deforestation. Huge amounts of greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide, is released into the Earth's atmosphere. And as a result, the Earth's natural balance is disrupted, leading to a range of environmental changes that have far, reaching consequences. Um, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) has basically said that we've seen a rise of 1.1 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial era. Now, that number by itself looks small, but in terms of the Earth's temperature, that is a huge number, and it has already had profound effects on our environment. We recently saw, the forest fires in Canada. Not
Right.
only was the forest fire big, but it was much bigger than any of the average recorded forest fires recently. So not only is climate change happening, but the effect of climate change is becoming increasingly severe, right? But I think there are some solutions which are available to us, right? Despite the consequences being quite serious, potentially renewable energy, carbon capture technologies are gaining traction. Could those be the answer to the climate crisis, Carmine?
I agree, Rishi. Yes, they could be. The issues are quite complex and articulated as also the solutions. And probably this is worth a few of episodes just dedicate on that. Let me also bring another one on the list that is very close to me. That is the challenge on biodiversity loss. It is not just about saving animals and plants. So I was reading this article on the Living Planet Index. And this shows an average of 69% decline in wildlife population. And this happening in a very short period of time between the 70s and today. And the most affected species are the freshwater ones. They are the overall greatest decline. We're talking about something around 83%. And another figure that really struck my attention was about the all the species that become extinct each year. We're talking about 0.1% of all species, with something between 200 and 2,000 extinctions occurring every year. But it's also interesting to understand what could be a net zero emission equivalent for biodiversity. And WWF was defining during the COP15, that is the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity meeting that this year happened in Canada. They defined something interesting. Achieving net zero for nature is certainly not enough. We need a nature or a net positive
Hmm.
goal to restore nature, not simply halt is lost. So more natural forests, more fish in the ocean and river systems, more pollinators in our farmlands, more biodiversity worldwide.
You're right. Biodiversity, supports uh, healthy ecosystems, which we all rely on for everything. Whether it's food, clean water, even medicines. And when species disappear rapidly, as you just mentioned, and those speeds are alarming, these ecosystems can collapse with devastating effects. That's a stark reminder of how interconnected everything is, particularly these challenges that we are discussing today.
Yeah,
And speaking of this sort of interconnectedness, one of the main problems that's emerging is water scarcity, uh,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it is
yeah,
becoming increasingly grave. We discussed climate change just now, which has a direct impact on water resources, giving rise to the issue of water scarcity. Um, Water scarcity, refers to a situation where the demand for water exceeds the available supply. It's a global challenge affecting billions of people. Sometimes, based on where you are located, we may not appreciate what's going on. But shockingly, around 2.2 billion people around the world lack access to safe drinking water, according to the WHO. It's the water scarcity is escalating due to population growth, industrialization, climate change at the back of it all, and it's placing significant strain on freshwater supplies. It's estimated that by 2050, 5.7 billion people could be living in areas where water is scarce for at least 1 month a year, which is terrifying, and that will have severe social and economic consequences.
yeah. And these numbers are really, really alarming. So we talk about climate change, we talk about water scarcity, we talk about loss of biodiversity. Let's say in the top ones, in these top five, I think it's worth to mention also the waste and pollution. Um, so we generate a lot of waste. The world generates around 2 billion tons of municipal solid waste. By head, we're talking something about uh, between zero point 0.1 and 5 kilograms. So the range is quite quite big on average. We're talking about 0.7 kilograms per head per day. And the issue about it, and this pollution contributes to global greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, environmental degradation, so effects on the decay of the organic portion of solid waste that contributes to 5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And then, of course, there is all the issues about plastic waste in the ocean. So quite a complex one, also this one.
Yeah, this issue of plastics in the ocean or generally in the ecosystem is quite a big problem. And actually, the waste management practices that we follow today contribute to the destruction of habitats for living organisms. It leads to water pollution, and strangely enough, even more greenhouse gas emissions as a result of our waste management practices. In our first episode, we had discussed the concept briefly of linear,
Yeah,
use that needs to become more circular use. So reduce, reuse, recycle needs to be the new mantra. But it's not just about how we manage the waste we generate, but it's about how we can prevent this waste in the first place.
and now restore it what is already gone.
Hmm.
I'm with you. Um, Then last one, I would say agriculture is another threat for sustainability. Agriculture that can contribute to sustainable stewardship of the land, air, and
Mhm.
water. And this you can do it adopting practices that enhance solid health, conserve water, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But agriculture can also pose threats to sustainability by causing land degradation, deforestation, water pollution, soil erosion, loss of habitats and biodiversity, and climate change. And these impacts can have severe consequences in terms of food security, livelihood, health, and environmental quality for all of us.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think we've discussed some of the most significant challenges. But maybe just to wrap up, it's clear that the sustainability challenges are deeply interconnected,
Yeah.
and potentially so are the solutions, as we may find out in subsequent episodes. These challenges require holistic solutions um, that address multiple issues at once. For example, reducing greenhouse gas emissions will also help combat biodiversity loss and water scarcity, for example. And cutting back on waste will reduce pollution while also helping to mitigate partially the problem of climate change.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rich. All the solutions are here interconnected. And I'm really looking forward to go to the next episodes now, to go deeper with our subject matter expert host. We have all a role to play here. So looking forward to it.
Yes, indeed, we have all a role to play. Thank you, Carmine, for this enriching discussion. We hope our listeners find it as enlightening as we did.
Thank you, Rishi, and looking forward to the next one.